This time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Mahler to give the invocation.
Pray with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you for the many blessings that you've bestowed on each and every one of us. There are so many out there that I know a lot of times we take them for granted, but just help us to slow down and enjoy the many good things that go on in our world and here in this part of the world especially. We'd ask that you'd be with our county family, Lord. We have a lot of people that are hurting and suffering from one ailment or another, and we know you're the great physician. If you just lay your arms on them and heal them and bring them back to full power, we would appreciate that. Lord, we thank our first responders that protect us daily. We thank our military and our veterans that protect us not only locally but around the world. We'd ask that you bless our meeting today. Help us to walk in the light of your light and do the things that would make you proud. These things we ask in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Y'all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Take your seats, please. It is our pleasure this morning to recognize a guest and an appointee of Senator Fallon. Is Mitch Kipp. Mitch is the regional coordinator for Senator Fallon's office. Mitch, you stand up and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please, sir.
So my name is Mitch Kipp. I was born and raised in Frisco, Texas. My family has lived in Wichita Falls for 50 years, I think. When I turned 18, my parents and I moved back here, and I attended Midwestern State University right now on a finance and accounting junior major. Just recently got hired on with Senator Pat Fallon, working in a regional office here in Parker Square, the first Capital Texas building. And we'll be the point of contact for Young County, Clay County, Wichita, Archer, and another one that's close by. So. No, sir, it's not Montague. It's
Well, in about a year, that may change anyway, so
Yeah.
we're going to regroup. So,
Yeah. Mitch, I got one assignment for you. Commissioner Hart, would you stand up a minute, please, sir? Would you render honors for the Texas flag for the pledge? How do you do that?
I honor the Texas flag.
You don't have to do the whole thing. I just want, now you see how he's got his hand held out?
yeah.
Now, the legislature started out that way. I've been trying to convince him for 5.5 years that they now do this. But I can't tell you for sure at opening session, which they had. Would you find that out for us? But I think, because we accused them they had their hand out for local money is what they were looking for. And I think that's when they changed.
One thing that I'm very proud of is on the old campaign trail, all of the more, I don't want to say older, more experienced people do it the same way I do. And that's the way I was taught in elementary school. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that's the way we always did it. And it was good to see.
We didn't have a Texas pledge when I was in elementary school.
And I don't think
I'm not as old as you are.
I don't think
I'm a lot younger than you.
I think you don't think that. I don't think I'm curious now, Mitch.
Okay, who taught me that?
Yeah.
It was the school system.
See, we missed that.
Yeah.
I'm
Now,
sorry.
we did the pledge every morning of the American flag, but we didn't have a pledge to the Texas flag back when I was going through. We would have.
And it was really good to see a whole bunch of people do it the same way I did. And I went, I
Well,
should have took pictures.
Yeah, they're all politicians.
They're not. Most of
Most
them
of
were more experienced,
Oh, okay.
a lot more experienced.
Okay.
Moving right along.
All right. This time I'd like to, we're not going to do the presentation of Lynn Nauman because Lee is gone for a school down in San Marcos. And Lynn was cleaning up today from the Home and Garden show, stuff they did. All right, so we're down to the presentation of Employee of the Month Award for February to Sandra Recchio, Motor Vehicle Supervisor, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Beecham, who coordinates that part of our program, to do that. And Mr. Smythe, if you all would come forward, please. We'd like for you to be part of that also.
Well, Tommy, I want to take a second and brag on your entire office, and
Yeah.
particularly what y'all have accomplished, and thanks to the efforts of this fine young lady here. You are one of, what, 3 counties? One of 3 counties that have been recognized as a gold standard, a top-level performer in your motor vehicle operations. So that's quite an achievement, something that we can be proud of. We're number 1. We're the best.
Top 1% of the state.
Top 1% out of 254 counties, we're right there. So we definitely appreciate all your efforts and the efforts of your staff, and with that, I will give the floor to you, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, Sandra, this started in 2017, and with our other motor vehicle supervisor, Sandra's promoted in January of 18, and I did that. But this has been a 3-year project, three-year accreditation project, and I think when it all shakes out, there's 55 performance benchmarks we had to make. And this last year, every audit, every inspection, every inventory has to be perfect. In other words, they come up here and they find that we got 2 license plates missing, we get dinged for it. And we're the largest depository for plates out of our 18 county service region. Nobody has any, matter of fact, other counties come to us to get license plates. So a lot of inventory control, a lot of quality control, a lot of ongoing control and training. Our staff now is practically all certified with our certified tax office professional designations under Senate Bill 546. Sandra's been a big advocate of that. She's heavy on training, heavy on staff development. Can't say enough about her. She comes to work every day, got a smile on her face. I've never seen her rattled. Just does us a great job. She emulates what good county service is all about. And if there's anybody deserving of this, it's all fell in line. Commissioners judge with us getting this gold award, and February being our month to recognize an employee, this kind of the stars of the plants lined up. And we appreciate everything you do for us. With that being said, this is presented to Sandra Rico, Wichita County Employee of the Month, February 2020, and appreciate you for your outstanding performance, service, and dedication to Wichita County. You deserve it, sweetheart.
We have to take the floor. Thank you, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the support.
Let me get your picture.
Anything you want to say?
Hey, Mark, let me get your picture.
Tommy, do you
Will you come
need me to bring those
No, it's fine.
plates
Put you
back?
on one side.
Bring your one back.
We'll put you over here by Tom. We'll be holding hands.
No, I don't think you have to worry about that.
Nancy, would you print this off for me? Yes.
Let them ring.
Bob, thank you.
Yes, sir. Congratulations. Thank you. And I agree about that smile. I've never seen you not smile. Thank you. All right.
No, for everybody.
That's front page reporting. It's good stuff.
Now my hotspot's on. Do you need it?
All right. We're down to public comments. Anyone in the audience have anything to bring forward? All right. I'd like to ask court to take action on the consent agenda. I'd like to move item 6 down to general business. So,
Judge, I'm having some laptop issue. What was 6?
6 is that interlocal agreement with Electra.
Could we do that pending Amy's approval? And then that way we don't have to, we'll get all of your injections made in there, Judge?
Well, the DA's office asked us not to do things that
Oh.
way.
Oh, okay.
They sent us a letter. It's been a while back, and we try to abide by that.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
but I had looked, I thought you had said there was a different version, but I have the same version in my packet I had that I asked you about last Friday.
because the road construction's in the new packet. I'll ask
Okay,
Debbie.
Yeah, but that wasn't what was given to the clerk to give to us.
Okay. I'll
Or at least
remind
we-
me of that name.
yeah.
I'll get that, Judge.
Okay, yeah, that and it also just,
Thank you.
so you want to just go ahead and remove that item, Commissioner?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay.
We can just put it, Nancy, if you will, just next week, put it back. That'd be great.
Because it also, there wasn't anything in there about damage or liability of caring for, and that kind of, it was billing for use. But if somebody, or like if they borrowed the zipper it doesn't say anything about bringing it back with new teeth on it and that kind of thing, and those are expensive.
Yeah. We'll do the rest of them, because I wanted to make sure I'm not unique to Barry's, Lee's, or Mark's.
We're talking about redoing all of them and yours being the model for it.
We've got one, but they're old and we.
They're old and they're really, and they're vague.
And Amy,
Yeah.
do you see that being, what we did, Andrew Whipke built us a new one, and then I think maybe Molly flipped that one to me right before she left, and we couldn't find the signed copy one. So I had the blank template, and then they injected a couple of things, they were kind of minor. The road construction was what they wanted injected in there, and the judge had that too. And then they wanted to make sure we were clear on the, if no labor was requested, no pay for labor was requested, that it become exempt, that we wouldn't do it after the fact is what they mean, and I think Brett Hale might have put that in for them in two little places there, but that's all there was. And the judge has some additional things that we'd like to include. Do you see that being, with having the template already, should that be tricky?
Probably not, but I'd like to look at the whole contract.
Okay.
Since I'm not familiar with the contract at all.
Would you rather me give you the red line after I put the judge's comments in there and then let you?
I'd rather look at the whole thing because I haven't had a chance to do that yet
Okay.
at all. I wasn't even aware of the project.
Okay, good deal. Perfect. I'll send that to you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think I heard from the discussion, we'll remove the F-250 pickup from item 7, and send it to precinct 2.
No,
No.
no,
No.
no, that, Judge, that's a truck. That's a dump truck he's talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
this-
thought you were
that's
talking-
fine.
No,
This is a pickup truck.
that's what
this is
this
a
is, a pickup
here.
truck.
Oh, I
I want a
misunderstood.
pickup truck.
Oh, you want a pickup truck?
I
Yeah,
thought
my pickup, my assistant
Oh,
foreman
I
just
thought
died.
you, oh, well,
I
now that's the
misunderstood.
pickup truck they've had. It's a 99 diesel. Are you sure you want that?
Well, I mean, if it's a decent truck, I mean, I happen to have something, but
Well, do
I don't
you-
wanna spend $12,000 on my old one to get it fixed.
No,
It's
I
not worth
wouldn't
it.
either. I mean, but you're welcome to that truck. You're gonna have to call Steve Bolin.
Lee, didn't you get a used pickup?
Well, we were trying to, but I don't know. if
Well,
we
it was
got
on the,
done.
on the agenda last week to replace that pickup that died?
Yeah. But if he can get one without spending any money, considering he's already spent his capital money for the year, he doesn't have enough in contingency, so.
Well, can I just, go investigate this truck? I mean, it's old, but it's still usable.
Well, let's take action here pending Commissioner Harvey pulling that. And then then we don't have to come back and address it, and Commissioner Harvey can make the deal with Steve, what needs to be made.
Well,
Because I sure
What
don't
deal
mind
needs
him,
to be made?
I don't mind him to use it, but the last thing I want is that pickup back in my yard, because I sold it because it's an issue, so.
I don't want it if it's junk.
Well, I mean, it's 99, it's 20
okay, go
years old.
look at it.
Go
Let's,
look at
let's
it.
quit this,
Yeah.
beating this dead horse. Good Lord. Okay. Now, I don't want to do it in a court order that gives it away, and then we make a deal. Then we have to go back and rescind the court order. You know, we could wait a week and put it all
Okay. Well,
on here, just remove item 7 then.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion
Okay.
to approve consent with moving 6 down to general business and striking 7.
Okay.
We're gonna
Oh, we're gonna
So
move
6
6.
is
6
also
gets
off,
removed
Mark.
also.
Remove them both?
Yeah.
Remove them
Yeah.
both. Okay, remove them both, sorry,
That's right.
That'd be a second.
marked them wrong.
Okay, any comments, anyone in the audience? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries 5-0, thank you. All right, item number 1 on general business is to review and approve the regular bills for payment.
Motion paid, Judge.
Second.
Man, That's the first time we've had that kind of response in a while. Had to call who won that tie.
Well, we're off to such a great start.
Yes, yeah, okay.
We're wide awake.
Motion by
It's early.
Commissioner Waller, second by Commissioner Beecham. Any comments or questions on the bills from anyone in the audience? All righty. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 2, discussions regarding the limited tax note plan for construction projects with bond counsel and Wells Fargo representatives. That's one's going to include Murphy in that, isn't it, Commissioner? Next, you're going to get them on.
Murphy, we appreciate you coming today, and I know you've been aware of Marcus's and Carl's emails back and forth and those deals, but we're excited to move forward with this, and we're ready to move forward with it, and we just need your instruction as to how you would have bond counsel proceed and the layout.
I've got some pass outs for you.
Great.
First one's in.
Only two, and I think there's big leases, but those are two where, that two going to.
That's the software. This is the limited bond.
All right, that's pretty well cleaned everyone.
Yes.
Lease deal.
Correct, correct.
I thought that was good.
Should I go ahead?
I guess we're waiting for
Okay.
bond counsel and Wells Fargo.
Murphy, just a side thing, I'm thinking, when we were doing this before, there was something about $10 million made, you got that in? what
Yes.
Okay,
Because you can issue $10 million in a year, and if that's all you're issuing in that year, it can be what's called tax exempt bank qualified.
right,
It'll be tax exempt irrespective of whether it's bank qualified or not. It can be bank qualified, which means you really, from the bank's perspective, they get it at a more advantageous rate if it's tax exempt. So, but one of the things that I'll go into here a little bit later is they're talking about issuing the new debt, and will it be tax exempt or taxable, and that's going to be predicated on if we do the refunding. One of the first refunding we're talking about would be tax exempt. The second refunding was a taxable initially issued and would have to be refunded as a taxable.
But we don't want to refund that, Murphy.
Well, that's
Why-
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, you save a little bit of money on that, but it does.
Complicate things.
Right. So as you know, we work directly for the county, so
Right.
it doesn't matter to us whether
Right.
it's refunded or not refunded, or if it's 10 million or 4 million, so.
Right.
But if we're not refunding those two, then really the issue that we're talking about is the.
Now, we're refunding the first one, Murphy, the tax note, but we're not refunding the Pilgrim note.
That's,
Okay.
that's one that
So you're
says refunding of finance
refunding
contract
the
service.
first- Well.
So that we have a one-note function going on in that limited tax.
Okay, then that one is the one, since it's tax exempt, if you refund it tax exempt wise, for bank qualified tax exempt purposes, you wouldn't be able to do the financing, the 7.9 million. 7.9 to 2.38 gets you over the $10 million maximum that you can't issue more than $10 million for it to be a tax exempt issuance. Not a lot of difference between taxable and tax exempt, but there is some
Well,
savings.
I was under the impression that the 2-1 was the tax exempt note. But you're telling me that the 2-1 is the Pilgrim note.
Well, refunding limited tax note series 2006. That's the one I'm referring to, the 2.385 million.
Okay,
And I'll double check on it, but I think it's tax exempt.
but even, it is tax exempt, Murphy, and but I was under the impression that if we renewed that note and we borrow 12,400,000, that it would then leave a $10 million note, in essence. Well, it would actually leave a $12,400,000 note. So that's where you're talking about. It's over 10 million.
Well,
Because we would encumber that note, it's got a higher interest. We're getting a lower interest rate. We're gonna pay off that note and move it into the 12.4 million we're borrowing.
well, and that's my point.
You-
You can't issue more than $2 million in any calendar year, not fiscal, it's calendar.
What does that price tag look like then when you're non-tax exempt on that portion of the note? Can we be tax exempt on 10 million and not tax exempt on the 2.3?
You sure can. You can go ahead and refund
Okay,
the, let's say the 2.3 million.
Existing note.
Refund those.
right,
And just refund it as a taxable, and it's so short-term, we're not talking about
a
a huge
great deal of
savings
money.
one way
Okay,
or the other.
good deal. I'm worrying about
But you just
nothing.
can't get over the 10 million cumulative
Gotcha.
total
I got you.
of the financings, whether it's now, or in
Okay.
July, or in December.
But it doesn't compound. Everybody's aware, and it's no trick horse in this mix that would be hard for Wells Fargo to deal with or to.
No.
Okay.
No, as short-term as that one is, it's only a couple of years
Yes,
left
that's
on it
correct.
anyway.
That's correct.
That one could be done in a taxable and not really
Affect the
have
matter
that
at all.
big of an impact.
Okay.
The big impact's going to be on the 7.9 million that you've got, and we would suggest, if we do the refundings, that, number one, we've got to include Carl Parker, Horton, Sam, and this is Sam's summation here too,
Okay.
along with my information that I've given him. And then we would like for him, on your behalf, he's your legal counsel.
Right.
Or McCall Parkhurst is, when it comes to issuing bonds. We would want him to look at all the paperwork, make sure this is done like this. And by the way, rates are now lower than
Sure.
where they were when they were talking about this, so
Sure.
we're not scuttling the issue at all, other than maybe we go back and say, is there something else you can do?
Right.
In addition to what you've done, but still a fairly attractive refunding rate at 1 3/4.
Right.
Is what they're talking about.
That's crazy.
And so we want to,
If we
Murphy,
stay
then
out long enough, they'll
strike
pay
the
us to take the
Pilgrim
money.
deal and not compound or, because also it is a short-term note as well. I mean, it's got a lot of life left on it. We paid it down to a great deal, nearly half already, quite just under half, or just over half right now. So, I say we leave that alone and let it progress as it would.
It would simplify things.
Let's,
It would
I
certainly
think the court
simplify
will
things.
be-
And I think they took it on their own behalf and said, hey, by the way, we can refund these two.
Right.
Save you some
yeah,
money.
no, I think it does.
would be cleaner if you just had the one issue.
Tax to tax, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this would, at 7.9 million, as long as it's under $10 million, it can be what's considered bank qualified, meaning a bank can buy it and take the income that you're paying on it as tax exempt.
Right.
Meaning that's the lowest rate that you get, assuming the credits are all the same. If you can do one tax exempt, it'll say 15, 20 basis points minimum on the.
But Murphy, if we don't do the Pilgrim note, we're talking about $10,004,500.
Oh, so you're still wanting to do that, you're still wanting to do a refunding in addition to the new issue?
Well, we would just do the refunding of the tax note, if I understand correctly. I was under the impression that we have a payoff on the existing tax-free note we have today. And that payoff, we would take the $12,400,000 that we're borrowing, pay off the existing tax note, and then have $10 million left to.
Which is 2.1, is that the one you're
No,
talking
it's
about?
But it
2.3.
exceeds the $2 million.
It exceeds 10 million.
Yeah, the
still
2.3
exceeds.
is the one that's now tax exempt. And that if you do it, if you include that,
Still
along
leaves
with
you
the
over 10.
7.9, you go over 10 million, and
Yeah.
you can't issue a tax exempt bond. It has to be a taxable.
So Murphy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So can we leave those two notes alone
Yes, you don't have to touch it.
and just borrow
You're not gonna
the
save a
$8
huge
million
amount of
that
money
we need?
anyway, because they're fairly short term to their final.
And just borrow the $8 million that we need?
Yes,
And we're perfectly legal, we're tax exempt, and it would
Yeah.
just simplify everything,
yep,
period.
that would be,
It'd have two notes, but it would be,
How
it would
long,
save us a little bit on interest.
Well, but we need to drop the value of our Wells Fargo offering down then, because they're funding us $12.4 million. I
right.
mean,
we just-
12,
Right, and there's nothing done finally on this
Okay.
anyway. There's not a problem with doing that. It's just that, what's the final financing going to be? The financing is going to be the $7.9 million, per what we've been discussing. And then the rest of that is just stands on its own. You can, at any time you want to, you can look at, another refunding at any time there.
but can you run it both ways, Murphy, and see if we do not get the tax exempt status, how does that affect us as far as then carrying the existing note, as Commissioner Harvey was saying, with the higher interest? So I'm gonna take I'm just rounding, a 2.5% interest rate on $2.3 million left and continue to pay that in lieu of taking the 2.3 million, refinancing to 1 3/4. And then I know I have to pay, or I'm not at an advantage because of the tax-free scenario, but what is that cost differential between those two scenarios?
Okay, and what I'll do is just get with Wells and say, all right, run this one, run this one, run this one.
Okay.
We can do it. What you're gonna find though, is you are gonna be able to save some money on the 2.3 million and the 2.1 million.
Okay.
However, the 2.3 is a tax exempt and would be reissued as a refunding as a tax exempt. If you do that one, my point, overall point is, if you do that one, that then says on the 7.9 million, you can't do it as a bank qualified tax exempt. It's tax exempt to everybody but a bank, but that does increase your cost, and it increased Wells's return.
Right.
Or decreases it.
Their return, yes.
depending on what
But
it is.
I'm lost at the 7.9 because it's not a number in my mind.
Well, that's what they're suggesting.
Oh, that if we paid off
net
both
new-
notes.
No, if you get the net new money, is what I think Wells was talking about.
Well, but isn't that a function of borrowing 12.4 million, backing those two notes out of it and have 7.9 left? That's not what we want to do. We need $10 million.
Okay, that's the bottom line of what I need.
Yes.
We can run the 10 million of tax exempt, bank qualified tax exempt.
Correct. And,
We can do the
and
numbers on that.
and Commissioner Harvey's recommendation is fine if that scenario plays for you. Okay.
Now, under this scenario, those will be dedicated funds, correct, for projects
you have
listed?
to, yeah. you have
And
to-
we have that list, Commissioner Beecham, and has passed it last week, and we've reviewed those, and we still have a little bit of time to even tweak those as it goes through the motion, right?
Not a problem there.
Okay.
If it's a clean 10 million that we're doing, and you wanna look at this at some other point,
Right.
instead of complicating this
Sure.
particular financing that you're doing. But as long as you're in that $10 million, then you're gonna be considered a bank qualified tax exempt
Okay.
issuance. And we'll work with Paul Parker, who is
Great.
bond counsel. what we're talking about is consistent with what your request is.
Yeah, the key thing in this is a loan, it's not bonds, correct? It's,
They call it's a tax note.
yes, but it's not we don't have all the expense of issuing bonds in this, is that correct?
Well, we're not going for a rating, for
Yeah.
example. As
Right.
long as Wells Fargo is comfortable with the county's financial situation, and they're comfortable with the legal preconditions that McCall Parker will put on it on your behalf, saying this. As long as everybody's in agreement with that, then you could do the financing directly like this on that.
Okay. The other thing,
We'll ask them too, McCall Parkers, make sure that we can proceed with it, just like we're talking. If there's any problem with it, McCall, on your behalf, will come back and say,
Great.
you can't do that. You can do this, but you can't do that.
okay, that's,
Instead of Texas.
Murphy, Leroy, and maybe Sam may be on the call now. Leroy, are you there, or Sam?
Good morning, we are Leroy and Sam here, and I hear most of what Murphy's saying, and it was a little harder to hear some of the commissioners there. But as Murphy discussed, we will have to kind of make some modifications to the current term sheet, and we'd be happy to talk with you all about those and structure, but Murphy is summarizing it well this morning.
let me, this is what,
Because I don't have it. Go ahead.
Sorry. I also was having a little trouble hearing. So is the thinking, just to be clear, that we're going to proceed with the, some number under 10 million in new money as a bank qualified tax exempt note? And I guess with respect to the possible refundings of those older notes, you guys are gonna, think about whether or not that makes sense, because they would be taxable.
Right, and
Have I summarized accurately?
Well, actually, that's,
This is Sam again. There is a chance one of the notes is tax exempt. That tax exemption could be granted in the event that the county wanted to proceed with a tax exempt refunding of the 2016 note. The other note did not, likely will not qualify as being tax exempt. That could, the county could proceed doing that on a taxable basis. So
Okay.
those are the three separate pieces. Obviously, if the county wanted to look at rates and make a determination that they do all the refunding as one series taxable, they could do that as well. And then we will have to just, again, get a project list and look at the projects to be financed so we can determine that those are and can be issued on a tax exempt basis. And then
Right.
obviously looking at all three pieces, determining whether the two pieces or one piece that is issued on a tax exempt basis is under $10 million and would qualify as a bank qualified obligation.
And Sam,
Right.
one of the things that I was, and this is Murphy, one of the things that I was suggesting that also came from the commissioner's response here just a little bit ago, is if we limit this, we certainly make it a more simple financing if we just limit it to the new debt money, the $7.9 million, and do it as bank qualified. So it's, 10 million. If we just did a $10 million bank qualified tax note and leave the refundings to stand on their own, if we still want to look at doing that, we could maybe look at doing that a little bit later, but just keeping it from a simplistic perspective, that would give us the amount of money that the county could issue this year is tax exempt, and leave out a lot of the extra tons of legal documents that have to go along with the refunding and then the reissuance.
That's good.
In other words, that would be
We have a great set of documents to start with, from, the 2016 note. I had a look through them, and, I mean, my suggestion is, of course, to keep costs down, would be to start with those, as a template.
Well, what would be wrong with one of the things we're talking about, which is just from a simplistic perspective, not looking at the potential for the refundings at this time, just issuing the $10 million as a tax exempt, bank qualified, tax exempt obligation tax note.
Right, and that's, you know, what we did in 2016.
Right.
I'm not talking about refunding the 2016 note. Instead, I'm just suggesting using the documentation that we used
Sure. Not a
back in
problem.
2016 as a starting place.
Yeah, no, I agree. I misunderstood what you were saying.
That would be good.
This is Steve Stern with the credit team in Austin that Carl was working with. He couldn't be on the line today, and I've been hearing what's some of the discussion as well, and we haven't been in the loop at all times on this, and so we appreciate being able to discuss this with you this morning. And as far as the $10 million new money to keep it bank qualified is not a problem on our end. If we leave out the refunding, we were just under the assumption that with the rates and the rate environment where it is, that there's a possibility to refinance those. But I guess the point we want to make is we can provide the flexibility needed to accomplish the county's needs for the projects at hand. And if it's going to be $10 million in new money, we can revise our term sheet and you know, under a tax net scenario and work with you on that.
That would be great, and if you would include Murphy and myself in that, on the new proposal, that would be great to see, and then Murphy can run some numbers for himself to compare, to make sure that refunding is out of the question altogether.
This is Woody Gossam. Let me bring in a couple other things. Number one, let's look at $8 million also. There is a tax point we got to consider. When we were talking about refunding those other two notes, then enrolling in that at a lower rate, we weren't going to have as much tax impact. If we're looking at $8 or $10 million for these new construction projects, we have to closely look at how much tax impact that is. And we all have good reason to believe this is probably our last bite at this kind of apple because of the vindictive attitude of the legislature to curb local government and be able to do much of anything on its own. So we've got to guard that, but we can't put ourselves where we keep pushing that 80-cent cap. The other question, so when you propose this, and add me on that list you're sending that to, is also that I want to break that out and look at what that total INS rate's going to be with those two notes and what you all are proposing in $8 or $10 million. And then I think the other thing you all got in the Wells Fargo letter, there is a breakdown of when we would have those draw dates. That's all in 2020. I'm not sure we can get all of those projects underway.
No, it's at least a 4-year commitment.
Well, I'm just looking at the dates here,
We have a timeline
gentlemen.
to participate under, and Mark, I think it's quicker than the 4-year, but we may just have to, because we are under some rules to obligate the money prior to, but nevertheless, it was just an assumption. Marcus was using best thought procedure as he put together some of those things, and I don't know that that's a great I mean, that doesn't cause Wells Fargo concern in my book, as long as we restructure according to what works for them and works for us too.
Well, are we flexible on draw dates? I mean, is that something we can structure?
Yes, I think we are.
Dates would be up to you. Once your financing is done, then you determine what you're gonna do with your money.
Is there any of those percentage rules apply to the tax revenue notes that, you've got to have a certain amount, 30% in the first 3 years or something like that? There are some schedules that are put in there that you have to then justify why you haven't spent that money.
Well, and at that
That's
point,
correct, Judge. There are, again, assuming these are issued on a tax exempt basis and the projects qualify, there will be those same spending requirements. And so, I would recommend you all look at projects that you can finance within 3 years. That's kind of the outside target, is that you have to have 85% of those funds spent within 3 years.
and that keeps you from having an arbitrage tax.
Correct.
Back to you. So,
Right.
But that, if you think about it, the 3-year time period is a reasonable time period.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Talking about.
And it might be later than that.
Yeah, I know, because there's not enough contractors.
That's stacked up too.
It's going to be interesting to try to schedule this with the, we already run into that, the availability. Fortunately, there's enough construction going on in Wichita Falls that, we have a limited number of trades. That the other thing is, some of those trades we've seen on our jail, they're working in Dallas or Fort Worth in lieu of working here, because they've gotten work there. So that it may be a little more difficult than it sounds to get that projects rolling in that 3-year period. The other thing I want to ask you, we are doing a lot of lease purchase of equipment. Does that figure those into this? Because they are paid out of interest and sinking. Does that have anything to do with that $10 million cap?
No, none whatsoever, Judge.
I'd like another
Sam?
opinion.
Did you hear what the judge was saying?
Judge, it will factor in, if you all are entering into those on a tax exempt basis and filing an 8038G, a form that goes to the IRS. But if you send us those, we can talk about maybe offline what those lease purchases are, and, but those would be factored in if they're technically issued or incurred on a tax exempt basis.
Yeah, okay, we can see, I honestly, Commissioner, I don't know whether I don't think we've even dealt with that terminology on any of those.
Well, no, but on the construction, there is no lease purchases in here.
No, I know that.
To pay off existing lease purchases, we are, our project is requiring $10 million. And I would be all in favor of taking the $2.1 million out of permanent improvement and paying off the Pilgrim bank note with it and reducing the INS to that extent.
But you don't have that money in permanent improvement.
Well, we're close to it, yes, sir, we do. Well, the permanent improvement fund today sets at what?
2.5 million.
So.
I'm going to see that, because we were ending the year under $1 million. We taxed for $1.3 million to go into it.
Well, that was including the limited tax note and the software note.
Okay. The Missourian in me is going to come out. I want to have some show-me time in there.
That number has fluctuated a
Yeah,
lot.
I don't want
The
that.
last few years.
Sounds like we're talking to Washington D.C., not Wichita Falls, Texas.
Well, and I
Judge,
think
that's one
that-
thing that we should send in to Sam when we're sending the rest of this, because Sam will look at it and he will tell you one way or the other if based on the current requirements that you have, how much of that is tax exempt or taxable, or what the status is at that point.
We've got about 4 different considerations going over here. One of them is the tax exempt status and can you qualify. But I think what the judge is getting back to, and of course, we're worried about time on the drawdown amount, which we can adjust, so I don't think that's a problem. But we're also talking about cash flow to be able to make payments. And so that's another consideration that we've got to look at, which takes into consideration what that balance is in permanent improvement and whether that's what we want to do with it or not, because we have used it as our go-to fund in any kind of emergency that comes up.
And we will, when we do the 10 million and the 8 million, it will show you at least, it'll break it out and say 10 million, this is what your annual.
Yeah.
8 million, what your annual is based on what the current.
I need a
interest
spreadsheet.
rates are.
Yeah.
It's got all that on it where you can
But,
trace it.
but Murphy will have that,
Yeah.
I mean, after we get to rolling with the project. I think the basis or the essence of what we wanted to meet with was to indicate that we are ready to go and we're ready to move forward, and we do want to look at seriously the lineup of the numbers, and so that we can quickly proceed and choose that best option and move forward.
Okay, and one of the things I would suggest too, that from Sam's perspective, is that you run through him, what the total financings are, what you're gonna be using those funds for. Send them in to Sam at McCall Parkhurst and let him look at them just to make sure they're in compliance.
Great.
All of what we need to be in compliance with as far as the bank tax
Right.
exemption, or bank qualified tax exemption and or taxable
Good idea.
issuances.
Great.
What you can do, if you want to refund those two notes, is refund them out of the general fund balance in 2021. Pay them this year and then refund them in 2021.
Okay.
What are the interest notes on those, Willie, do you know?
Well, yes.
They're not on here, are they?
Well, the current
You've got 'em in
is
your budget.
2.35 on the 2.3, Barry, and the Pilgrim note is about 3.75. So it's a higher interest, but it's, because it was software, it set itself aside, and not bonding, we couldn't even include in bond proceeds software in the LEC. So it's a caveat to what bond coverage could even do to begin with, Barry, and that's why Pilgrim did it separate and apart.
But from this perspective, I sure think it makes good sense to look at a 10 million and an 8 million, all bank qualified tax exempt, and then treat this other as a separate entity as to
Right.
whether or not you go forward with that. It just makes things much more simple on this new financing that you're talking about.
Sure.
As opposed to combining the two, which is fine, but it does complicate things. quite a
Absolutely.
bit.
Absolutely. Wells Fargo, we certainly appreciate all the time and effort. Carl Nicchio is one fine operator. He has been over backwards staying abreast. Marcus is fantastic to work with and has done a tremendous job on everything he put together. I just want to brag on those two guys. Also, Wells Fargo, you're paying these boys too much. Not Marcus, but Carl. He's in Ireland right now. So that he called me Friday afternoon to tell me that he would not be a part of this, but not to fret, that we were in very good hands and that y'all would all be here. And we have had conversation, and I knew you weren't totally up to speed on all regards, but Marcus and Carl have been hand in hand on this, and I really appreciate what fine guys those are and how easy they've been to work with.
We appreciate the comments, and we are certainly enjoying working with the county, and we want to put something together that really works for you all. And it sounds like we're going to go back and kind of revise the schedule. And just one thing that caught my attention as you're talking is on our fixed rate when we're designing the structuring of this. Obviously, working with Mr. Davis and Sam and with McCall is just making sure that the draw schedule is what we're going to go after, and that's what the assumption is we would just need to make sure we fix those dates as we're working through them. The dates of the draws up front that would go into the documents themselves, and that's just how we would need to work with the fixed rate on our end. And so, those dates could be anything, the amounts could be anything, but what we would do on our end from a procedural standpoint is when that date comes around, we would actually put the money into the project fund or whatever fund you designate for those monies to go into. We would put that in there, whether that project is ready or not. And so it's just a little bit of a different way than having a single disbursement versus a draw, and of course, we want to make sure that that works with Sam and with the Attorney General and with you all as well. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
And that makes perfect sense, and we'd have no problem with that, so.
Okay. And I'd like to, this is Murphy, I defer to Sam on this though, as far as whether those funds have been distributed or not, as far as the tax law is concerned, but again, I defer to Sam as to what the net, what action the county has to do over this next 3-year time period to make sure that we don't get into a problem with the tax exemption of the county.
And Sam, one,
And Murphy, this is Sam. We'll circle around kind of offline and have a conversation about, you know, projects, again, reasonable expectations with respect to expenditure, et cetera. So
Okay.
we'll circle back with you and the county on that. For the folks at Wells Fargo, the other thing I just wanted to point out is, again, we're talking about new monies here. The one thing, the county will set their tax rate, and they'll have to factor in the new bond payments. And so, I see the first principal maturity here is 9/15/20. That will need to be pushed back after they set their tax rate. Again, once they issue this, they'll levy taxes to pay the next coming due debt service, but those taxes won't be levied until the end of September.
right.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We're flexible on that as well, Sam. And, you know, I think that was just discussed, you know, if it need be to, you know, work around the existing payment schedules if we need to, right? You know, work with existing versus the new money to make sure that the tax rates all work together. We're flexible, pretty flexible along that as well, as long as everything fits in the 7-year timeframe.
Okay. The other thing to keep in mind, I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, Wichita County is on a calendar year. Now, we'll start collecting taxes in October, but we don't have any budget for those new taxes coming in until January. So that, if we look at payment schedules, that's a little, didn't want you all to think we were on October 1 year.
Right.
Because I think your current debt service is around about, I think total is around $5 million, if I'm not mistaken. And we can keep that if we need to level for the 2020 year. And then, because I think that as we have the schedule on there, it runs out to September of 2026. But if it needs to be pushed out to, for example, I don't know if it's March of 2027 or whatever it needs to be to make sure that, you know, we allow that time to set the tax rates and everything else, we can work with that schedule.
Sam, this is Jeff Watts. One of the things that I know that we encountered last year and that you will need to cue us on, I guess, or help us with, was the order that allowed us, that we proceeded, we spent some funds that we wanted to reimburse ourselves for, and we prepared an order to do that, and it was within a timeline that was specified. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir. The reimbursement resolution, and, yeah, we can prepare another one of those. Let's kind of figure out timing as well and when you all need to start spending the money. If we need to do a standalone reimbursement resolution, we can do that. If the ball is going to move pretty quick on this, we can also build that flexibility into the order that is adopted that approves the tax note. And that would, again, you're looking at from the date that this reimbursement resolution or order would be adopted, you look back 60 days from that date to capture any expenditures.
Thanks, Sam.
Anything else? We appreciate y'all being with us this morning, and we may have to have either a work session or at least a subgroup of us kind of visit with you all, and especially looking at what Commissioner Beecham can, as we put money numbers to that construction list project because it has no schedule to it. And there was one other project that's not in that we're going to start out of what's in the permanent improvement fund this year, that elevator.
Correct.
So, and that's how much, roughly?
$500,000.
Only $500,000? That's better than I thought. Okay.
A good thought, Judge, because we need to be doing that also, but one of the things, just as a preeminent discussion here, or pre-discussion, is that once these funds have been issued for these particular projects that the county will be listing to be at the $10 million or $8 million, those have to be restricted to those and can't be then dispersed any other way other
Yes, sir.
than
Right.
for those particular projects.
Yeah. And so far, we've managed to keep those walls in between those and
Right,
do
just
it,
like
but,
the county jail, what
Yeah.
you're doing here, Bob, is making sure that those are kept segregated so that we don't have the Attorney General calling up and saying they'd like to have a special meeting with us about how we're using your
Yeah.
funds.
right.
We want Sam to keep that discussion going with the AG rather than us.
Yeah, Sam, the other thing, and I do not mean to offend our Wells Fargo part of the people that are offering this, but do we have any requirement to solicit other proposals?
One of the things that we will do is, excuse me, Sam, or just, let me mention this one thing. One of the things that we will do is at the time of the financing, we will then, on behalf of because as you know, we don't get paid a penny more, penny less that Wells Fargo does this. We will then look at what the markets are for this term and this issue and make sure that it's competitive.
Okay.
Not that it's the best in the world or worst in the world, but that it's in the market, good competitive rate that the county's getting a good shape on its
Okay.
interest.
So if I'm clear, you will be doing that for the county?
Yes. Yeah.
And that will meet that. I didn't want someone to come back, we get everything going, and all of a sudden we get stopped.
We will be working with them, and as you know, we've worked with other different dealers
Mhm.
and doing financings on behalf of the county. We will work with them preemptively so that as they'll do their scale of what they're anticipating. And right now, we have one from them. If it changes because of where current markets are, based on the timing, we will discuss that with Wells and make sure that it is competitive as far as the county is concerned and other financings that are being done, notwithstanding what the county is doing.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Thank you all. Murphy, if you wouldn't mind, hit the button, see the large telephone button on there to the left.
Thank y'all, appreciate it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks, that'll terminate the call.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Okay.
Technically.
Yeah, there, put that on the table, thanks. Yeah, you did well, you got it the first time.
Yeah.
No alarms went off, Murphy.
The police aren't coming.
Yeah,
Sheriff.
yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you
Appreciate it.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Murphy.
Okay, appreciate it. And this, just as a side comment, this makes it makes it a lot more simple on this financing, of new financing, and then for the projects that are out here, and then refunding. Let's look at the others as they stand on their own. We'll still be looking at that at some point, but this is much cleaner.
I agree
That you're doing for
completely.
this particular project, whether it's 8 or 10 million,
Okay.
we defer to you guys on that.
Thank you, Murphy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're down to item number 3, is discuss, consider, take action to approve purchase of agreement with First National Bank Leasing for Precinct 5 equipment from Bruckner's Truck Sales and Warren Cat. Authorize county judge to sign the required documents. I believe that Commissioner Watts, that's yours.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge, one more time, I was.
Item 3.
That's the, I'm had, bear with me one second.
Nancy, do you have an extra paper copy for him?
Jumped off and on. Yes, we have the two scenarios in front of us, and I passed out, Nancy just did, Jim is here, Russell with Caterpillar, and as you see, we've got a sheet from Stewart here this morning, and it breaks down basically what that amount of our payment would be, and Stewart put this together for us. We would be purchasing this 5-year note on a middle-of-the-road size. It's a 316 M, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
M 316.
You had them all, just dyslexic placement.
And so that's kind of, you can see what our lease payments would be annually on that. We're going to trade in those two machines against that that we currently have, apply it against that or take it off or use it to even pay quicker down our note a little bit. But nevertheless, that's what we're looking at out of Precinct 5 obligation in lieu of making capital outlay, just doing a big outlay of capital. We're not going to do that and instead encumber it with lease payments and coupled. And so you can see that's $52,000. We couple that with then another $35,000. We would be roughly at $90,000 where we budgeted, Willie, was it over $250,000 of expenditures? And we're not going to spend that $250,000. We'll leave that in our piggy bank and just encumber $90,000 instead of the $250,000 cash outlay, Bob, in lieu of that. So we had budgeted to purchase equipment up to that, but in lieu of that purchase, we decided to go this route and leave the money with you.
The interest rate's at 3.5%, and we're getting interest money at 1.75. Why would we not go out and see if we could not get a better interest rate on this?
Well, I mean, we're perfectly able to, but as you know, from the other two I called weren't in this ballpark at all.
That's what I'm asking.
No, what I'm saying is the other two banks that I called weren't in this low for this kind of deal. Yeah.
But you can't compare interest rate on that bond with,
No.
this is more of a consumer type rate, and that, so that makes it look a whole lot better.
Yeah, but actually it has more collateral to it, though. They're not going to repossess the county road.
Exactly right. You come pick this thing up. What's expected delivery date on that machine, Jim? Do you know?
I went ahead and got one locked out of the factory, so I was, give or take 2 to 4 weeks. I'm just
Okay.
estimating.
We could be running it today.
And then, Jim, there will be, your man will come and train
Yes, sir.
us on that, and we could schedule that for several training. Could we need, it's complex when we have everybody on one. We would like to schedule those
At least 2.
Yes, because it allows us to split it up and people to ask better questions, and they're not intimidated, and plus they get a little time.
Whatever works for y'all, we'll
Okay, great.
we'll come see.
And that's the attachment list we talked about last week. That's 2 buckets, 3 buckets.
It's 2 digging buckets, 1 muck bucket. There you go.
At some point, I don't know that it's necessary right now, we may want to look at a thumb. But we could do that at a later
You
date.
have that at any time.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's almost a must. I mean, that thumb is what's holding us back from doing so much work. Why wouldn't we add it right now?
Is it a permanent? Do
Yeah.
you want a fixed thumb or a
No,
hydraulic
hydraulic.
thumb?
It's semi-permanent.
Yeah, but I want a hydraulic thumb.
Jim,
not something you take off and on every day.
ballpark that, $12,000?
Sure, 10, 12, something like
Okay, that's, I'll say let's
But
do it then.
that's, if we're gonna.
Well, Jim's got it and he can do
I
it.
thought it had one on it.
No,
Oh, that's, to me, that's, you gotta have it.
okay. If well, no, I'm with you, it just takes a little better operator than,
Well, we could do so much more with it if we had a dumper.
I agree,
Okay.
I agree. Okay. So, and so Jim, put you on the back burner 1 second. The truck deal, and Commissioner Harvey, I was confused. I thought you were needing the stick shift. That pickup is automatic, but the dump truck was a
Yeah, we thought you had a truck down.
2001
Yeah.
stick shift Mack, relatively clean, but it's just that older version of clutch truck. And then there was a 79 tractor involved. The tractor was 17.5 was the payment on that. We'll get in the program that we're already in with the existing truck and the existing tractors, where they make us an offer on that and we see if we want to flip at that point or not. But that's what the payment would be, is 17.5 on the tractor and 18.5 on the dump truck. Similar.
What's the value of that trade-in truck you've got?
12.5. So it'll buy that down nearly one whole payment.
I was gonna say, I might want it.
It's up to you, and it's neither here nor there with them.
What size is it?
It's a 15-yard,
It's tandem axle.
yeah, tandem axle.
I'll go look at it.
Okay.
Is it on the yard?
It's on my yard, yes.
It might make sense to get rid of one of my single axles, swap that in. Just.
Well, that could be.
And they're all stick shift trucks anyway.
Yours is?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and
We ought to
then,
at least look. I don't know if that's the deal, but let's take a look, anyway.
so, that is, the essence of the deal, and I would like to then make a motion that we move forward with this and let Stuart present papers that we have that we have agreement in place that we built with them, but then give it to Amy and let her review the contract for this coverage and move forward with both the Warren Cat and the Bruckner trucks.
Okay, but back to what we talked about earlier, let's don't do it and then ask legal, let's let legal look, and then I always worry, because sometimes we've had equipment delivered and none of that was done, and that messes everybody up. So I'd rather.
Well, legal is gonna have to support us a little bit better than they have in the past on a timely fashion. I mean, we can't wait 8, 9 months. I mean, they're snowed up under. So
Okay.
we need to get a boilerplate template.
Well, we
that
have
all agree
one.
on and
We
use
have
it
a,
over and over
Okay.
I
again.
mean, we have existing deals with Stuart right now under that same agreement.
We
There's
should be
no-
fine, but I'm just saying,
We have multiple, actually, so, I mean, we built that, Meredith was key in that with Stuart as well, and Stuart utilized that form from the get-go, so I feel like that, I mean, that in essence, everything is what it needs to be, Judge.
And I think so, but let's take a look and do it. The other thing I'm kind of concerned about is, does this have any impact on what we're trying to do in the item before this? It may be might have to change that plan.
You mean on the.
$10 million, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, as far as, how do you mean?
Well, because we will pay for that out of interest and sinking, so it's money borrowed. And that's all I'm concerned is that.
Well, yes, but bear in mind that you're setting on, we will fund that payment out of the proceeds. We set aside
So-
capital monies.
Okay, so you're going to move that, you're not going to put any tax rate, you're going to take that money.
Correct.
Okay, you did say that earlier?
Yes.
Okay. But with interest, that's not quite enough to cover that, is it?
Do what?
When the
Yes.
gross amount?
Well, yes, Judge, I mean, we set back more than $250,000 to make equipment purchases with, and we are only going to spend $90,000.
Well, that's just on these. We also have other lease agreements that are interested to see that we're
Well,
funding.
let me be clear. We set aside $250,000 plus to buy new equipment with in Precinct 5. Not to make payments with, that's other money. $250,000 we set aside to purchase equipment with in Precinct 5 that we had ideals that we may want to do, purchase trucks outright for one. But we're not going to do that, and we're not going to spend that. Lease payments are not part of that $250,000 I'm talking about.
Okay, just want to make sure that we were aware of our outflow of cash on all lease agreements, the front end
Yeah.
loaders, maintainers.
Well,
just making sure
you
we're-
look at that list in the budget, which is in your packet book, that's pretty healthy, right there. And so are you talking about then transferring that lump sum to interest and sinking for it to be paid out of there?
No, we wouldn't. We would only transfer the $90,000 out of interest, out of our budget, Precinct 5 budget, to fund the payments with.
Okay, then where's next year's 90,000 gonna come from?
Well, we will have to take a look at our lease payments and act accordingly on the budget.
I'm just saying that list is getting longer.
Right.
Well,
And,
it was pertinent that we did. I mean, it was necessary.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
pertinent and having the money aren't always the same thing. I'm just cautioning y'all that that list is getting long.
You gotta cash flow it.
Yep. Okay, so no action to be taken on this one until we get the paperwork through.
No, Judge, we can't table every item on here because of action. Amy has an agreement, and Stuart Cobb has active agreements with us. This is not gonna be any different than an
Okay.
active agreement.
And that's-
John can look at it and along with Amy and give us a blessing on it and move forward with this deal. Jim's sitting here on go, Bruckner's is sitting on go, and we need to move and not delay this action. Because if there is an overhaul that needs to be done to First National's agreement with us, then we're in trouble because we're gonna have to back up and do all those other ones that we've got on the table as well. And it's just, there's just not any need to do that, Judge.
I just always think you're better off
Judge,
to do
we
it.
have forever, since I took office in 2016, pending council approval, I don't know how many motions we've made.
We
And John
stopped that
Gillespie has not
sometime
come to
back.
me one single time and said, Jeff, do not be doing that.
Well, we have a letter that was sent under a different district attorney. I don't know whether John wants to approach that different, but we were asked to not do that to him. Now, if it's the same agreement, we're gonna be fine. I would think there's not any reason to change that. But, you know, these things, as we're looking at them and starting them, maybe we need to realize, get the paperwork in. In fact, all the RFPs and stuff we do now have a requirement in them that they send the contract in with it so we can look at that, get that earlier instead of that hanging and waiting on them and then back and forth. You know, you made a motion. If there's a second to it, then we'll move on. Any other comments?
I would just,
Yes, sir.
okay, for me to start.
Yes, sir.
I know this is a deal done and gone, with Warren Cat and Machines of Success, but you have other viable options as well with John Deere. I'd love to be considered in the future to, quote y'all on some machinery. I know you've been leaning towards the Cat side, but I just didn't want you to forget about the other things out there. Appreciate it.
And we've got some, we probably have some other opportunities coming. This was a unique situation because we had been studying that machine for quite some time, and Commissioner Baller brought it to us some time back, and we had spent a lot of effort on that particular excavator. So we wanted to accomplish this mission, I guess. So our others, absolutely, we'll be tickled to death.
Understandably, I just wanted to be here and let you know that.
You
first
bet,
game
and
plan
I
happens.
appreciate that, Mr. Drysdale, very much, and we'll take some look at that, no problem.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, aye. Vote carries 4-1. Item 4 is discuss, consider, take action to approve county treasurer's report for December 2019 and authorize county judge and commissioners to sign the affidavit certifying compliance with local government code act, section 114.026C for December 2019. Mr. Hampton.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Well, you know the drill, it's, Mark, you got yours. You need,
Yeah, I
you need
got
an extra one?
I didn't bring it in with me, but
You
it's
didn't?
fine. I know what I've got.
Real quickly, looking at the TSG report, which is broken down and all that, and Curtis did a great job of breaking down our 800 fund, or 100 fund, which has probably 800 different accounts, but anyway. We're 4% ahead of where we were this time last year. The reason for that probably is because of the outstanding gold, hey, John, the gold dust. What's, all that gold dust is in.
Yeah, but
Tommy's
Mark
trunk.
put all that in that road last week.
But, of course, his brain is sitting to his left, but, we appreciate that department. What we've gone through today is a real interesting discussion on the value of involving all the department heads. As people are listening in here, you know, we got a lot of interesting comments down in Austin about how county does their business. People that are watching this should know that the county just didn't go out and borrow a great deal of money just willy-nilly or just arbitrarily decide to go out and borrow money. It takes a great deal of work and conversation and involving the department heads. I held a Series 7, a 63 and a 65 with Smith Barney for a long time until I was elected to this office in 2004. You can't hold a Series 7 license without doing a continuing ed every year, and you can't do continuing ed unless you're actively involved in financial planning. My point is, some of this stuff was a surprise deal, and you need to utilize your finance guy, whether it's me or the next guy. And I really would encourage you to, when we're talking millions of dollars, but people are watching this, and Curtis knows all this, but arbitrage, you know, that's a fancy word, which simply means we can't borrow money and then go out and make money on borrowed money.
Well, we can, but up to a limit, right?
Well,
You're doing it now.
in my line of work, you can't do it, period, Judge. There's a penalty for arbitrage. That's
Are we doing it now?
Securities Exchange Commission.
Are we not doing it now?
We're not making.
You're receiving interest.
We're making interest money, but we're not borrowing at 1.7 and then going out and making 2% interest return. See, that's arbitrage.
Right. Well, you
Okay.
can get into arbitrage if you take $70 million that we borrowed to build a jail and leave it in the bank and, you know.
Yeah,
do anything
yeah,
with
that's
it.
the
Don't do anything with
Yeah.
it. That's arbitrage.
Okay.
But anyway, I just want to make sure that people listening to this, and what the heck is arbitrage? I'm not even sure it's in the dictionary. But
Google it.
moving on to my snapshot, and the value of having a gentleman like Mr. Wall is the fact when you ask him a question, and he's going to tell you exactly what's the real number is. Right now, we have over $3 million, for example, in permanent improvements. And you say, well, how can that be? It can be that way because I'm looking at a bank account that says $3 million. And I'm not going to tell you something that's not correct. Now, how Curtis spends the money out of 401, by the time I get it, yeah, that may shrink it down. He may have spent some money Friday. But these are the end of the month reports, and you have to keep that in mind.
Well, we paid some bills out of it today.
We probably did. We probably did. We paid a lot of bills.
Yeah, you're getting that bad boy.
But,
Don't like it.
That's the reason for the report. Those numbers are real. I hope you'll take time to read them over. If you don't understand the spreadsheet, I've told you that I'm always available to go over this.
Yeah, but that's gonna get called for long.
But these are public dollars, and people are depending on us to do everything that we possibly can to protect them, and so their taxes don't go up. And so I know I've talked to all 5 of you. We're serious about this, contrary to what the current attitude down in Travis, the Republic of Travis County says. But, are there any questions about any one of those reports?
I was just looking at, your page on the precincts,
On precincts?
on the precincts.
Okay, Mark had a question on that. Well, what you're looking at, Lee, is the end of the month on the, what you've got in text pool and also what you've got in your gold account. The fund that I pay your bills out of is called the Road and Bridge account, 7099. What's left in that at the end of the month doesn't get reported simply because we try to keep it down. But if you'll notice last month, Mark's comment was, I had $1 million and now, I've got this amount. What happened last month, if you look at your sheet, is we had a absolute 6 bonds called out of the Road and Bridge accounts to separate precinct 1, 2, 3, and 4.
That's my point.
Yeah.
I was getting that, looked like a bunch of our bonds have been called, and I'm just down to American National Bank and text pool time.
Yeah, text pool and simply because the 10-year treasury right now is almost 60 basis points less than it was a year ago. Yeah, and so here we are. There's no paper out there right now that is paying more than text pool.
Yeah.
Now, we can't stay in text pool for everything, but forever and ever, because text pool is doing the same thing we're doing. They're investing.
Yeah.
So it's right now,
I see you
like
have
I
one
said,
for
down the road, whoever
2.5%.
takes my job, you need to support them. My God, this is a everyday deal. I'm reading, asking, traveling around. I'm not going fishing somewhere. This is right now. Financial stuff is pretty challenging. The cost of doing business is going up, and the value of our money is going down. You say, well, how can that be? Well, that's because we're knee-deep in debt government-wise. And so when you out here running for Congress, are you running for?
I'd like to ask a question.
What is that?
Okay.
13th district?
The, American National Bank is bringing in less than 0.5%, 0.45%.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's in your,
Why would we, and it doesn't look like it doesn't have a mature date, neither does the text pool prime. Why would we, put money in American National Bank at less than 0.5% when it could be a text pool prime at 1.8%?
it takes me a whole day to get money out of text pool. And so if those are just emergency funds,
That are in American National Bank?
yeah, you'll notice they're very, very low.
Yeah, they're great, yeah.
Almost 10,000,
10,000.
yeah.
Less than that though, Barry, is even less than 45 basis points.
It's tough to have money right now, Bob.
Well, it is, and that's the reason you just can't come in here willy-nilly and say, let's spend a couple of million. You gotta,
Well, if you're gonna borrow money, now's the time to do it. 1.34, or 1.75% interest.
I don't disagree with that.
Wow.
but,
I go back to the
But
night,
also, you gotta figure out a way to pay your bills too.
you gotta cash flow it.
You got it.
I go back to the
You got it.
1970s, and the first house I bought, I paid over 18% in interest
Yeah,
and paid it off.
exactly.
And I think about that today, when we're talking about doing these bonds at 1.75 or whatever, and I think, wow.
You're exactly right, Barry, but, we send people to Congress in Washington DC that's all they know is spend.
We don't talk about the deficit anymore. It's not even brought up. That used to be an ongoing conversation, and they had, what was it, the countdown clock going as to what it was all the time? I don't know where that is. Is that New York or somewhere?
Well, the battery went dead and they couldn't.
And they couldn't afford to replace it.
Yeah. They didn't want anybody to know.
So we've spent about $27 million on our new jail so far, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the last of the Mohegans there. And I think,
But let me finish my point about the
Yeah.
18%. Back in those days, I was making house payment, paying 18% interest. And now that I'm in the shape where I'm trying to put a little money up for retirement, it brings 0.45.
Yeah,
Whatever, you know what I'm telling you. It's tough out there, guys.
I know the book I read says that you're supposed to not be focused on wealth and worldly possessions, and somehow or another, the Lord has a sense of humor, you know?
Oh, he does.
Yeah, he does.
But he still expects you to pay your bills.
So you're saying that our Congress now is becoming more biblically oriented because they don't care about the money?
Judge,
Good way to put
you
it.
and I have had converse about my comments about religious persuasion of our Congress.
Judge, that almost sounds like a campaign slogan.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
However, we might want to send Tommy Smythe up there to give him
We can
a
do that.
lecture on getting a gold award.
He can get in the 50 model and ride on up there. That'll work. He has windows now. He can go.
But that 4% that we're ahead right now is exactly what you've already alluded to, Judge. These are tax dollars already being incorporated in our bank funds.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing a great job over there.
Yeah.
Questions? You may have any answers. That's what I was afraid of. I move
Okay.
that this report
Bob,
be
thank
approved.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bob.
And we give Mr. Wall a gold.
He's got all the gold. We can.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I keep getting these notes from TCDRS. When's he gonna retire? We need to know ahead of time. We got a plan for it.
Yeah.
Little big check.
It's gonna be a disbursement.
Okay. We ready to take action on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the report and authorize
Second.
the court to sign.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Muller, second by Commissioner Watts. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item 5 is receive an update from Law Enforcement Center Project. Commissioner Beecham.
Yes, sir. I thought I seen Stephen Parker out in the hall a minute ago.
Well, I saw Michael out there.
Did you see Michael too? Let's
Yes.
see if they're still out there. If so, I'll have them come in and get it straight from the horse's mouth.
I'll tell you something where an old boy can make some
Hey,
money
y'all
these days.
here.
He can come up with the cure.
Y'all wanna come in and
Common
just
cold that's
kinda
dragging
fill us
on
in
for
on-
about 2 weeks with everybody.
Oh, man, yeah.
Everybody I talked to said it goes on for a while.
I got to with Chris. She said, have you asked the doctor anything about that cough you had? No more than she finished that sentence, she started coughing. I said, well, I was gonna wait for your answer, just use it.
Well, this is
Yeah, my doctor told
Stephen
me
Parker and Michael
that
Perry
you're
are
about over.
project manager and project
Yeah.
executive, and we're at the time to update the court on where we're at on the project, so.
Where would you like me?
I'll
Right
come
there.
on up,
Come
come
on,
on up.
Tables fine, yeah.
So good morning, thank you for having us this morning. Apologize we were late, we thought you guys were at 10 o'clock, you guys were early birds, you guys started at 9 instead, so apologize.
We knew how long you were gonna be.
I'll be very brief. The good news is the first round of cells has arrived. So if you've had an opportunity to come out and see what the cells look like going into the building, I talked to the superintendent this morning, said he took 30 loads of material last week. Thank you very much for your help with the road. That we couldn't have done it without you, so that was a big help for us. But first round of cells are in place. They're going in very quickly. We have roofers back on site today. The weather, if you are in charge of the weather, if you could make it stop raining, we would appreciate it.
But not permanently.
Not
Yeah.
permanently.
We
just-
had
just
enough
for
of
a couple
that.
weeks if we could.
On the weekends instead of Tuesdays and Thursdays would be
Right,
nice.
right. For us, it'd be nice if it would rain on the weekends. I know others would probably feel differently, but if we could make it not rain, during the week, that would help us out a lot. So, progress is being made. If you're out there, we just saw this morning, they're out there painting the exterior, so you can start seeing the
Wow.
exterior color come together. Both the Sally Port and the other prefabricated metal building are up. So you're really starting to see it come together. We'd like to see it dry out just a little bit more to help us get in there, but again, the big milestone to date is the phase 1 cells going in, so that's huge for us to start seeing those things go together.
So you'll set all the sails, then you'll put the roof on it?
Roof are on, we actually slid them in on skates. Low profile, about 2-inch roller skates.
Tillman rollers.
Yeah, they just set them on four rollers, one on each corner, and everybody push. And they slide right in place.
Why aren't those things they advertise on Saturday night late TV? Those,
I tried to order those, Judge.
I bet they didn't last.
They come in as well as I thought they would.
Ronco.
Yeah.
Rest assured, it will dry out.
I hope so.
It's
We
got-
need it, we need it, but, it's
Well, if the
going-
roof is on, that'll help you work in on the interior stuff. You should be able to do
Yes,
some
sir.
kind of workflow.
Phase 1 roof is on, they're on phase 2 right now. They've got roofing crews out there today, no more rain. We're aggressively going after it.
You know, you look at the overall project and our weather scenario hadn't been that bad really for the whole thing as a whole.
We're 40, how many days?
43.
Yes, sir.
Which on a project that size, I wouldn't think that was out of line.
It's not out of line.
We've seen a lot of, was it 2 years ago we had the wettest October? Maybe 3 years ago, we had the wettest October on record.
Yeah.
And that was a bad month for us. but-
Yeah.
So, thank you for having us. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
So do you know what your new target date is for completion?
So we're gonna bring you back here in a couple weeks, the G2 dormitory areas, I think that's how we're
Right.
referencing it. We'll have a new completion date for you, total cost of what the new G2 dormitory area is, be able to show you some more of that in more detail.
The other thing we have told them, we want a good opening date, not a rushed opening
Yeah,
is
I
not
agree
as
too.
good as having that punch list down to minimal things, instead of having the sheriff have his personnel. You know, if we come in and things don't work right, we have set a feeling in those people that we are spending a lot of money and effort and work from the sheriff's planning and his leadership to us to not have a bad first impression.
Might say they've been hands-on, going through the building with us, which is exactly what we want. If there's something that needs to be changed, adapted, moved around, we'd rather know now than you get to the end and the sheriff and everybody walks through and goes, whoa,
Well,
that won't.
that needs to be done via a work order or a change order.
Sure.
We don't shoot from the hip changing anything.
No, and we don't. No,
No.
everything,
No.
you'll see in a couple of weeks, we're doing a large change order, bringing in the G2 and some other things that
Okay.
we've asked for in the building that we can now accomplish.
That's great,
Yeah.
full documentation.
Well, in my experience, when you're trying to satisfy your customer, which is the sheriff, your team will do things unauthorized.
There's,
Like, I sure would like to have a drinking fountain up there. I sure would like to, can you put that light plug? Sure, we don't mind doing it. And first thing you do is go write it up as a change order. And, you know, at the end of the job, you know, we're $500,000 and stuff that we did that your people asked for.
Sure.
So we don't want to
No,
go
that
there.
is not happening.
everything's being tracked. Every time somebody has an ask like that, we get an IOCC, and there's been a number of IOCCs that I told you to throw in the trash, so.
Yeah, and that's why the process is working.
The nice thing is this finishing out of G2, which we left out originally to make it stay in budget because of the drastic change in some materials, key materials in it, now is going to be paid for from that money we don't make on the $70 million.
Right.
I don't think Bob understood me a while ago. We do make interest money
Yes, we
on
do.
that.
About $2
It's,
million.
but we can't have the principal of it outgoing the interest that we're paying on it. That's what he really was trying to say. So,
Thank you.
thank you all.
We
Yeah.
appreciate the work effort and all of the interest that you have had in Wichita Falls. I know I was with you before Christmas come down, and
Yes, sir.
and that was great. I just love the involvement and the attitude of involvement, so I appreciate that, and helping Mark with his projects. I think this is.
Yeah.
What was it, one of your competitors told us at a trade show a while back, we had the second best organization working on this project. So I think that's a compliment.
I'm gonna take it, I don't get many
Well,
of those.
we had a great meeting, I think you and Mark had coordinated for our safety meeting, a great number of people out there. I was fascinated with the presentations that were there and the opportunity to get to review the facility, so it was just fantastic.
We'll do it again.
So I don't think y'all have gotten to meet Stephen Parker. He's our new project manager.
Stephen, glad to have
He's
you.
been on the job for, what, a month and a half now?
Yes, sir, just about.
Yeah. Sheriff
You're
Bill?
still here.
I'd like to say also, one of the factors whenever we picked Yates was the fact that they built 5 jails in Texas, and the jail inspection passed the first time every time.
And
And that's a huge,
That's
huge
huge.
thing.
Very
to
important.
That's
Making sure
huge.
everything's working right before we move anything in there. And we're 100% backing these guys because we know what they're doing, we see it every day. And it's a huge project, a lot of people don't realize how big it is.
Yeah.
I like
It's
having
big.
people come up to me now and say, man, that thing's pretty big, is that the jail? That's the.
Yeah.
It's changed the landscape out in
Sure
that
has,
neighborhood,
sure
I'll
has.
tell you, it really is.
But that's a key factor, and part of the, one of the key factors when we selected Yates, the process, is the fact that before anything was done, anybody moved into anything, in the jail wise, is the jail inspection passed first, rock out of the box.
And we, between the build team and the design team, it's a weekly conversation with the jail commission, so.
Constant in our
it's-
office
Yeah,
with everything.
so, and they've been nothing but complimentary every time I visited with them on the phone of just how good both our design and our build team has been to work with, so.
The good thing about it is not only what things that we design and what we desire, what we need, it's also the fact that it goes right back to the courts. The jail belongs to the court and it's responsible for it. That's the huge factor in the driving force of this whole project working, is the support of the court as well, honestly. So, it's all working together, it works good.
Good grief, and this is a project that's been coming for what, 30 years?
No, well, we first started talking about it in 2010. I think it's when we really had any serious talks about it, but finally took the makeup of this court to get a bond issue agreed on to go out on, which,
But don't forget the annex jail was open for temporary use till it could.
It has been, it's been temporary.
well, now, you,
Really temporary.
yeah.
Thank you
Thank you.
both very much. Appreciate you.
All right, anyone in the audience have anything to bring up? Commissioner Beecham?
The only thing I have is, I think it's Friday, is Wichita Falls ISD, Digital Learning Day, and I'll be attending that to see how our kiddos are learning digitally, so get to experience that firsthand.
Okay, thanks, sir. Commissioner Harvey?
Yesterday, Sunday, February the 23rd, I celebrated 39 years of marriage to my little bride. We were married 39 years yesterday. It was a good day. Took
If
her
we,
to
if we
Red
got
Lobster.
an award we could give her, Judge.
Took her to
I wonder if she's going for the gold at 50.
So last night, I told all our kids, so when we got married, all our friends were getting married and divorced. So we decided, we didn't want to do that. We said, we're gonna get married, we're gonna fight through it, and we're gonna make it. And I said, Debbie, I'll tell you what, 50 years, if you'll give me 50 years, we can renegotiate after that. So she stood up at the table last night, raised her water glass, and said, I just have 11 years left.
Yeah.
Is there a buyout clause?
No buyout.
All right, Commissioner Mahler.
Oh, we just, I tell you, one of the problems we're having out in the precinct trying to get some projects done, one is the rain delays, because we've got stuff that we really want to be working on so that we'll be ready to do our regular stuff in the summertime, and keeping our crew healthy. Good grief, it's so cold and flu and all the other things that are going around. It seems like if you get it, you've got it for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been tough. And I know I bet every department's had that challenge. And at church yesterday, we were talking about that, and I went to my doctor middle of the week last week, and he said, well, you're about over it. He lied. No, it's been tough. It's been a tough old cold and flu season and all, but getting some things done and trying to just get better organized where we can get some of these major projects out of the way. It's been tough. We'll get it done though.
Okay, Commissioner Watts?
Yes, I wanted to report that after our visitation, y'all were with, met JB last Friday here. We had a good learning session. We got a lot of time in with, did any of y'all meet, Barry, you were there and you met Jeremy. Remember he came out on the distributor, you know, retired from the service and then went to work and has worked for Klossner some time now, but transitioned from San Antonio up here to be with them in this new Rome location. But anyway, he came out and he just detail-oriented fella, you know, with his good service background, and he just excellent. But all that was great, except the Austin Road that definitely needs attention. When we went to Mill Austin Road, I can tell you that my garden does not look as nice as what Austin Road did in the short little stretch, and we pulled off because I have zero base material.
That's sand. That's why it
And
looks good.
so
Yeah.
we marked it. We marked it in every 5-foot increments. And you can stand on the edge and you can look, and I would say the majority of mine are, ½ inch to maybe 1 inch of material. No road base whatsoever. And JB said, Jeff, you're going to have to core this and see what you can do and can't do. Now, that's not always the case. The Lock Road was a different example that had base underneath it. But Austin Road, sandstone, complete sandstone powder. And if you pulled off where I had milled, you can't even tell that there is chip seal within the dirt. That's how fine it is. And I mean, he's cutting only to less than 1 inch in the mill, and it's will not work. And so there's going to be those deals, and I think it's going to be prudent for us, and JB gave me the contact to let the emulsions guy that does the core work, because you don't want that machine at your location if that's going to be the case. And you know, there are instances where it doesn't matter, but I can't afford to go in there and take Austin Road or a leg of Austin Road out and then base it. You can. You three today are styled to do that. I'm not within my budget today. And so I want to only mill what I'm able to mill, that I have the material to rework and make it to be a glorified gravel road until we can chip seal next year on that endeavor. Outside a small portion that we will chip seal when you're chip sealing, but they are very small in essence to what we had planned to mill. And so we're needing to reconfigure, and I'm going to talk to him about what that 6-8 inch core sample looks like and what that cost is for him to come up here and talk with us. Young man, just like JB, does it for a TxDOT all over the state. And so it was just an interesting find. So
You might check with some of our local paving companies here. Some of them may have their own coring equipment. If that's all you're, or that. There used to be a testing lab, and I'm not sure it's still out there by OK Concrete.
Okay.
But
just kind of in the
see if,
vicinity right there?
yeah, see if they,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Cool.
just to the south of OK Concrete.
Okay, good. I'll do that, good. I think it's going to be paramount. We are preparing to do the county line project that has been something we've worked through. We're just right on go with that, as well as we type our processes out on Buffalo Creek. And I was just saddened by the fact that I didn't have any material underneath the blacktop on that road. And I'm afraid that I have multiple, because of the nature of some of those roads out there, I could have quite a few that way.
Well,
You may not, and Barry may not have that be the essence at all. And I know that Lock Road in the mix, very close to Austin Road, was fine. But I did add material to it, and I would be perfectly willing to add material to this. I just don't have that budget capability this year.
Well,
What you might need to do is go out there and windrow some material in and mill it in while you're milling it.
Correct.
And build that base.
I
and kinda
totally
what that
agree,
core
Barry.
sample says.
I
And
totally
probably
agree.
that recycled concrete.
And
is the best
y'all
thing
could
to
do that, and I'm telling you, I just really was appreciative of Jeremy's time and the way he spent and coordinated and helped all of my men understand. I had John Jones there at the same time, and he's highly technical about all of that stuff, and it was just a good training.
How do we pay John?
John, a contractor, he's a contractor for us.
So whenever he's out there on top of the milling machine, what are we paying him?
No, you're not paying him in that instance at all. He went
To learn.
because he lives close proximity, but he's only getting paid for equipment operating.
One good thing, you won't wear any teeth out.
No. And Willie, on that note, do we have a delayed opening? Because we do have a bid. Do we gonna wait 1 week on that, or is it okay. So Judge, we're
Yeah.
setting on a bid for that, but we've got a little.
One of the things, when I came here in '89, I called them campaign roads. They had gravel and oil on the top and nothing underneath. They looked great. Now, the other thing was the common practice forever probably was to use pit run gravel. That they got out of that pit near Iowa Park.
Is that what a lot of berries will be?
That's what,
Bunch of them.
yeah.
And we've been, and we've over the years, now that we've been through several chip seal cycles, there's more material out there on
Yeah.
some of those than what
Yeah.
it would have been.
Yeah, and you all also started using crusher run and other stabilizers and things to put in there.
Well-
And that was reasonable for the time. That was what was available.
Well, the big push was to get them all paved.
Yeah.
That was the deal. And,
The final thing, Judge, and I won't delay us any longer, but the JB was very intrigued by when I first talked the milling machine and went to Rome and looked at it and talked through it. JB was enamored that Electra, Texas sat on the edge of the Wagner Ranch. He was just enamored by that. So I called Trace Cripps to see if he would, County Line Road comes into Whiteface and runs through the large headquarter barns and ends down at a barn.
Yeah.
And so Trace and I had worked a lot together on different potholes and things. And so I asked Trace if he would mind showing the stallions to JB and talk to him about it. And I want to report that Mr. Cronky has, if y'all are going down 183 and know where Zacawista is, the headquarters, the first house that you could see from 183 was where Bucky Wharton lived, and that house is no longer there.
It's gone.
It's
It's
been
gone.
taken,
Yeah.
it's been taken away, and there is a new $4 million quarried out of Wagner rock home there that has a metal roof that is very rustic looking, that tin that came from the ranch as well, but the large home had a rubberized roof put on it, and then it's covered in this rustic metal to give it the effect, and it looks like it's been there, in essence, 100 years.
It's called patina.
Patina, and so it is just incredible. But Trace told us some of those fascinating, amazing things, and then showed us what they are doing in the horse world, and it was just fantastic little trip before he left town, so.
Do we, that's great. Do we have any kind of a schedule on, of course, you can't predict the weather, but on operating that milling machine that we're gonna get some use out of it?
Now.
Because you know, it costs us $3,000 a minute to
Well,
have.
we want to, I'm gonna call him on the road today because I'm afraid, I don't wanna go through the expense of moving the machine and go to a place like Lake Road. I need to mill it all the way, and I'd be milling it this morning had that not happened to me Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
And that was our game plan. We were moving straight onto that. But now I'm scared that I'm gonna move over there and I'm gonna run into the same issue. And I think I need to do what you're saying. If I can find somebody by authors out there that.
Or take your,
Just drive the machine over there and start milling, if it's the
Take
same
your,
thing.
take your backhoe over there and take a cut
Exactly.
every so often. You
yeah,
can do
you
it
could,
yourself. You'll
yeah,
know
I was gonna
what's
say,
there.
I just use that or a scare fire tooth and take a little out, you can get a good enough.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
replace it, and it's like a pothole, but it's a fixed pothole. Yeah, you can
Or
find out what's
you
there.
can get one of those things and turn, you know.
You can core it yourself.
Yeah.
Best thing to do is take your backhoe.
Yeah.
Ride it.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd agree
that's a
with
good
that, too.
idea.
Yeah.
And I'll just go ahead and I'll run across there and we can.
We're ready for it. If when you get through, we're setting on go.
Okay,
Good deal.
all right, okay. You're gonna be out Friday?
No, sir,
No.
I think we've redesigned because I didn't realize the rider guys were here and Miles Davovich has agreed to help me, so I'm just going to leave and come to court.
Okay, so you'll be
and-
here, because otherwise, and you'll be here, and you'll be here.
I'll be here.
Okay, I will be in Austin for a judicial committee meeting, and Mark has been taking on that responsibility with WFSISD, and so we really need to be represented there. So we're good for Friday then?
Yes, sir.
All right, that works. All right. I would ask that we clear the courtroom for a closed session and briefing and discussion with Wichita County District Attorney's Office regarding acceptance of Allstate's offer in the matter of a 2014 Tahoe that was wrecked, fleet accident in October 2018. Meeting closed pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney. It is 10:56.